Do you really need a realtor? Well, August 17th, 2024, history's going to be made and realtordom is never going to be the same ever again. What happened? Well, last year, do you remember that $1.8 billion in fines that went out to the NAR and other top brokerages? Well, let me refresh you on what happened then. But bottom line is, it's changing the way real estate will ever be transacted again. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you the changes on two major rules and then whether you should or shouldn't use realtors ever again. Let's start by talking about what happened in October 2023. A federal jury found that the National Association of Realtors, along with several large brokerages, had conspired to inflate realtors' commissions. And on March 15, 2024, the NAR settled, agreeing to pay $418 million in damages, and the rest of it was paid out by other top brokerages. There are two major rules that are changing on August 17th that will change the way you and I ever transact real estate ever again. The first one is that home sellers will no longer be responsible for paying both their own agent and the buyer's agent. As in, like, unless you've been living under a rock, like if I'm selling a home, it's a really weird thing. Like I hire an agent to list my property, I've got to pay their 3% commission. And then some random person I don't know, the other agent is going to come my way. They're going to expect me to pay their 3%. 3 plus 3, that's 6%. And by the way, on a $400,000 house, it's almost like $25,000 in commissions. So it's crazy. And basically the first changes are saying, nope, if you want an agent, you pay for your agent. The sellers are no longer going to be responsible for doing that. By the way, this is going to have huge repercussions. We're going to talk about those in a minute. The second major change is that normally when you look for homes on the MLS, the multiple listing service with your realtor, they actually post what the buyer and seller commissions are already designed to be. And basically that's illegal now. That's going away, which means everything becomes a game of negotiation, which if you're good at negotiation, this is great. And if you're not, it's probably not that great for you. Here's what's kind of crazy about this. On the very first house I bought, I actually had to pay my own buying realtor's commission. And I haven't had to do that in thousands of properties. It's kind of a wild story. I basically was new to the game. I had found this realtor. I said, hey, will you help me find a deal? And I didn't read the fine print. I basically signed an exclusivity agreement, which basically said, if I ever transact any real estate ever again, this dude's getting a commission. Well, I forgot about the realtor, worked with my mentor. I found a sweet deal and I moved forward and I bought the house. It was the first house that I ever bought. And man, it was a gold mine. I bought it below market. I had a basement that I rented out that basically covered my mortgage. It was such a great win for me and my wife. Something creepy happened a couple days after we bought the house. That realtor came and knocked on the door and said, hey, do you remember me? I'm like, oh yeah, how you doing? He's like, congratulations, you bought the house. I brought you some pizza. I'm like, that's very kind of you. He's like, now you got to pay me my commission. I'm like, well, first of all, you didn't even find the house. We did all the work. We negotiated it. Like, I'm not paying you. Like, contractually, you have to pay me. And I'm like, I have to pay you and you didn't do any work. Like, yep. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what an ambulance chaser. I was so pissed. And then I thought, well, okay, never mind. Like the person that I bought the house from, that's the seller. They'll pay your commission, right? Everyone knows that the seller pays all realtor fees. He's like, yeah, but basically the transaction's already done and they didn't have a realtor and they're refusing. So you know what? My contract's with you. You have to pay me. I remember stroking that dude a check and I was so pissed. And I know what you guys are thinking, like, do I even need that realtor? And frankly, that's where the rest of the world is going to be starting August 17th, 2024. Do I actually need a realtor? Well, here's what I can tell you. As of 2023, 89% of all homes are purchased with realtors. And you know what? The sellers used to have to carry the brunt of that. But now that it's on the buyer's onus to actually have to be able to pay that, I don't know if it's going to go down because we're talking about checks in the thousands, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. So there's a lot of new negotiation that's going to happen. Here's what I think is going to happen. It's like, yo, if you want me to pay 3%, you want me to stroke you a $15,000 check? Like get lost. But if you'll negotiate a smaller fee, I would like to have representation. Why? Because realtors do give you some advantages. Here's the first one. They actually can run some comparables and actually help you understand if you're paying a fair price for the house. Number two, they might be really familiar with the neighborhood and the area, and they might be able to swing you a better deal. Number three, because they're representing you, you're not caught being the negotiator. When you have someone representing you that's doing the negotiations, you can play hardball, you can play whatever negotiation game you want. They can help you technically negotiate a much lower price. So there are really a ton of advantages of having a realtor. I just don't know if it's worth 3%. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if those realtor commissions drop to not just 2%, but 1%. And for some desperate homeboys out there, even less. It's strange. I actually thought realtors were always a ripoff when it came time to actually listing a property. I mean, you basically become the guy or gal that says, hey, I'm going to list your house on the MLS, and you punt it off to someone on your team, and they basically upload it and they take some videos and pictures and post it. And then a lot of agents literally just do nothing else. They're not like proactively doing open houses or going to hustle and try to get that house moved. In an economy like this one, you just don't have to do any of that. And it's like, was that really worth 3%? Was that really worth the 3 and the 6%? I mean, it's so expensive. So my overall prediction is that agents are going to start making a lot less money. There's going to be a lot more competition, and they're going to have to actually work a lot harder for the money they make. What's really going to happen is that you've got all these realtors out there with a handful of experts. I think the experts are actually probably going to get better at the game. I think they're going to make even more money. I think you're going to have all the rest of the wannabes that are going to kind of wash out. Now, you can't just be thinking, I got to save some money. That's why I don't want a realtor, because there are downsides of not having an agent. Working without a buyer's agent generally means that you have to do all of the work on your own. So it's easy to overlook details. It's easy to cut corners. For example, it takes a lot of time, work, and research to manage a home's purchase on your own. Without an expert's knowledge of fair market value in your area, you might unknowingly overpay. And here's the sad thing that I think is going to happen a lot. It's like, well, I'm not represented. I want to buy your home. I don't have an agent. You know what they'll do? I'll actually just go talk to the seller's agent, and I'll put them in a really weird conflict of interest and see if they can represent my interests and also the seller's interests. Well, that's kind of scary, because they're going to make money if they can strike a deal, so they can kind of work it from both angles. I think it's a little bit unethical, but more importantly, you might find that you're not going to be thorough in going through the paperwork because you're just trusting your realtor, when the reality is that a lot of those details fall under the fine print. Well, starting August 17th, let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do what I've been doing. I'll always have realtors represent me, but I'm also going to be negotiating, because since I do so much buying, if you think that I'm going to like pay a 3% or even a 2% commission, I'm just not going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work in volume for me personally, which means I buy so much real estate. I'm going to find a realtor that I can almost put basically on salary or really low commission, and I'm going to make up for it in volume. What do you do with that? Well, if I were you, I do think that you should have representation. You should have someone. And I also would be careful not to get caught up in the nickel and diming. I would actually rather pay for a realtor that is truly an expert, that's going to help me negotiate aggressively my best prices on all my deals. And in that case, I don't mind paying a 3% commission, because that 3% can become very worthwhile if the deal is done the right way. And then at the end of the day, sometimes it just depends on the deal. Like, on a particular deal, like you might find that the seller is inflexible, the deal is what the deal's gonna be, and it's like, shoot, like I'm gonna hire a paralegal, someone from the attorney's office, to basically play realtor and just basically help me do paperwork. It's gonna be a lot cheaper than using a realtor anyway. In other words, you got a lot of options, and I hope today's video helped you understand the lay of the land, what's shifting and changing, and some of the different options that you have. Really, I don't think the question is, should you have a realtor? I think the real question is, do you have the right strategy? Meaning, if you're in the game of real estate, do you have a strategy for making money? Do you have a strategy for buying right? Even if it's just a personal residence for you and your family to live in, is it strategic? Can you afford it? Are you doing it in the right area? Is it the path of progress? Does it make the most sense? For me, I consider a home also a house. In other words, it's going to be a part of my future investment portfolio. So when I buy a home, it's not just for me and my family. It actually has to make investment sense. And if you want to make sure you have the right strategy, I want to give you a copy of my book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth. If you click the link below, I'm going to give you a copy of this book for free. It is the strategy that I used to buy my first home that I lived in with my wife, but we got to live in it for free because I was a part of the strategy. And then that first home got turned into a rental, technically a lease option, which is what the book is about, and ended up making me more than twice as much money as a normal rental. So strategy is everything when it comes to financially getting ahead. Use the opportunity to buy that next house, whether it's for your family or not, to make sure that it's strategic, to make sure that it makes sense. And a copy of my book, The Straight Path to Real Estate Wealth, will get you on the straight path right now to wealth. Click the link below, grab a copy for free. Coming up next, is it cheaper to rent or buy in 2024? If you want to know, click right here, watch this video. Let me tell you.